What a day. What a day. All right. We've got a very important show today. We are talking about big historic things that are happening right now. This isn't small ball today. This is the big leagues, guys. Buckle up. Candace Owens discovered a very important piece of information that she put out on her show regarding Charlie Kirk's influence on President Donald Trump's foreign policy that was interfering with the goals of Bibi Netanyahu. I'm going to take you through why this is such a big deal and why Charlie was such a big deal. Also, Megyn Kelly was on Piers Morgan and was pressed over her support for Candace Owens and what she says about Charlie Kirk and what was going on with Zionists over Israel here adds fuel to this fire, which is currently raging after the coordinated Zionist attack on Carrie Prejean Boller, who had the courage to stand on orthodox Christian belief for over 2,000 years. Those beliefs that we've been talking about here, stating that she was a Catholic and that her faith does not support Zionism. She asked the Zionists testifying if this was anti-Semitism. They said yes, and this has completely blown up, as you're about to see. This is now mainstream talking points. It's the same strategy, though, that the normal suspects like Mark Levin, Laura Loomer, and the rest, they're calling her vile, evil, deranged, stupid, etc., and calling for Trump to remove her from this White House Religious Liberties Commission, complaining about the vetting process for its members. It's Zionist acceptable only, apparently, and it's all because of this exchange. We'll start there. I'm Zach Costello.
Just to be clear, is anti-Zionism anti-Semitism?
Yes.
It is? Under IHRA?
Rabbi, sure. You're up next.
You're not sure?
Definition,
so what is the definition?
I would love to speak to that. Undoubtedly, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, and undoubtedly, and one does not have to support the specific policies of the government of Israel, but to not support the right of Israel to exist, which is what anti-Zionists do, while not taking that same stand to the 28 Muslim countries and 13 Christian countries in this world, is a double standard, is hypocrisy, and is absolutely anti-Semitism.
I think it's also important that we not make Islamophobic remarks while we're here today. I would appreciate that.
I just want to say, God forbid, was anything like that said. But if you deny, if the Jewish people are the only people that you deny the right to have its own state, that is absolutely a double standard, hypocrisy, and anti-Semitism.
Well, as you know, I'm a Catholic, and Catholics do not embrace Zionism, just so you know. So are all Catholics anti-Semites, according to you?
As I said, anti-Zionism, by denying the right of the Jews to have their own state while not saying the same for any other peoples, that is a double standard, hypocrisy, and anti-Semitism.
So just to be clear, are Catholics anti-Semites?
Carrie, excuse me. I'm going to interrupt the discussion. Our committee is focused on religious liberty taken from all people, whether they be Muslims, Jews, Christians, Sikhs. We've had all those witnesses here. This is not a commission on defining religions or calling out any theology, or this is not the commission for that.
Right, but we're talking about a foreign nation, so I want to be clear on what the definition of anti-Semitism is. If I don't support the political state of Israel, am I an anti-Semite? Yes or no?
They already answered, asked and answered.
According to you on the record, yes? If I don't support the political state of Israel?
I don't personally label people, but what I'm saying is, if somebody states if somebody says they're an anti-Zionist, they are saying about themselves that they have a double standard and hypocrisy, and they're taking anti-Semitic positions.
Okay, Carrie, you feel like you have your questions in?
I don't agree with that, because as a Catholic, I don't agree that the new modern state of Israel has any biblical prophecy meaning at all. So that's my stance, and I'm Catholic.
Okay. So it's very important that we pick this apart. This is the way that conservative Christians are gaslit on this issue. The conflation of the Jewish people have the right to exist and they need to have a place to live with the religious belief that they are biblically entitled to this specific land and have covenant rights to the land, and that the current state of Israel is the biblical Israel, is wrong. A Zionist fundamentally believes that the biblical Israel is the current state of Israel and that they have covenant rights with God to this specific land, which is called their promised land, and the one from the Old Testament. And this follows if they are still Jewish and have not accepted Christ as the Messiah. So you can see there is just simply a fundamental conflict and difference between Jews and Christians. It has always been there, and it's a religious conflict. This is their religious belief, and they can then use the Jews have a right to exist and Jews need a home somewhere to cloak this religious belief that they are actually implementing on everyone. Jewish believers have protected rights in America. It looks like they have even more protected rights than Christians do. Christians are called to love and convert Jewish people, not support their claims to land rights or their religion. Christian Zionism is just an oxymoron and a term that just describes a confused Christian who picks and chooses Bible verses out of context and has apparently forgotten that the Messiah came to fulfill the old law, which is the Jewish religion. In any case, Carrie Prejean Boller is correct. And for 2,000 years, this has been the original orthodox belief of Christians. And precisely what these Zionists are saying is that our beliefs are anti-Semitic, and they would fall under violation of the law. The backlash against Boller, though, is truly insane. Here is where things are getting really dangerous. Mark Levin advises President Trump, and here he is saying that, I'm guessing this vile moron will be a guest on Carlson's show in the near future. He's talking about Boller here. I said, Mark Levin calls Carrie Prejean Boller a vile moron for standing on and citing 2,000 years of Orthodox Christian beliefs against Zionism. This is a prime example of the double standard we are operating under when it comes to religious liberty in America. Christians must tolerate slander, slurs, insults, and our First Amendment rights being infringed upon, while any mention of these attacks or dissent or disagreement with Jewish religious belief is met with cries to anti-Semitism and an appeal to authority to do something about it. And it gets worse. Laura Loomer has gone completely off the rails over this, blowing up the Trump administration to fire Boller over this, remove her from the commission. Her original post called for who at the White House selected Carrie Prejean Boller to sit on the White House Religious Liberties Commission. Her behavior today was disgraceful, and she has no place sitting on the committee. In fact, she should be removed from the committee, and she followed that up with confirming senior Trump admin officials tell me there are internal discussions taking place at the White House to remove White House Religious Liberties Commission member Carrie Prejean Boller after her outburst today on a religious freedom panel. Carrie used her time to harass Jewish panelists and blame them for military actions in Israel. Look, if the Trump administration caves to Zionist pressure and removes Carrie Prejean Boller from the White House Religious Liberties Commission for citing these 2,000 years of Orthodox Christian beliefs against Zionism, we are going to have a problem. J.D. Vance, as a conservative Catholic, we're going to need you to step up here. This is blatant anti-Christianism. And if they remove this conservative Christian from this Religious Liberties Commission, they must add another of the same at least. This is not representative of Christians in America to only have Zionist-approved members on this commission. It is absolutely insane that one religious group gets to gatekeep this federal commission, which is supposed to be protecting religious rights in America. This is a good segue into what Megyn Kelly told Piers Morgan about why she has refused to condemn Candace Owens and has refused to bend the knee to Zionists. Listen.
You've been very supportive of her, not critical, even though she, I would argue, and I have to her face when I've had her on the show, I get on well with Candace, but some of the stuff she's been doing in relation to Erica Kirk, Brigitte Macron, and others, I do think is really regrettable, kind of conspiracy theory nonsense just for clicks and money. Why would you hesitate before criticizing her over stuff like that?
I've criticized Candace many times over the years. We've had many public fights over the years. But isn't it interesting that you will, quote, platform Candace? She hasn't been on my show in several years, but I get all the hard time. Why am I getting that? You're the one, quote, platforming Candace Owens. She and I don't have that kind of relationship. Candace took a bunch of crap because she was very anti-Israel in the Gaza war. And it became a thing where you had to say she was terrible in her positioning. And then after Charlie died, she started questioning whether Israel had any role in it. And that's when they really tried to amp up the pressure on me to condemn her. And I refused because Charlie was starting to have serious questions about Israel. Not just its role in the Gaza war, but its influence on American politicians, something he and I spent hours and hours discussing. So I had no problem with Candace Owens asking those questions. And I refused to condemn her because I was under pressure from these people who wanted me to. And then that morphed into then everything Candace said thereafter, with which I may or may not have had serious problems, that I had to, where's the condemnation? And it was all really about the Israel thing. And I'd rather die than bend the knee to these people. I'd rather die than bend the knee. It won't happen. I didn't raise my fist and say BLM, and I'm not going to condemn the people they want me to condemn just so that I can get a little pat on their head, on my head from them. It's not important to me. What's important to me is I live free. And that, frankly, is what it means to be an American.
Megyn Kelly was extremely aware of what Charlie was going through for his shifting views on Israel. He was turning from Zionism. And because of the, quote, stereotypical behavior of Jewish donors that left him no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. And he made that clear to Megyn Kelly, who is not willing to close herself off to the possibility that because of all of this, and because of how influential Charlie really was, and we're going to get to that in a second, Israel might have been involved in his assassination. At the very least, it's worth asking and investigating. But you see it right there. Charlie began to recognize, as all of us do, the tremendous influence that Israel, through Zionists, both Jewish and Christian, has on our politics, government, and media. Noticing this is not anti-Semitic. It is rational observation that this is not an even playing field anymore. And whenever any Christian speaks up about this, we're shut down and categorized as bigots, evil, or diagnosed with some historic mental illness for the dissent and disagreement. No one wants another Holocaust. No one wants another Nazi Germany. We just want equal rights and protection and representation under the law. We just want the First Amendment of the United States Constitution upheld for us too. Let's get back on track though, because here is the punchline. Listen to what Candace Owens published about Charlie Kirk advising President Trump on foreign policy that defied Bibi Netanyahu.
Okay, something that I want to mention to you that I had been quietly working on to confirm the date for. I'm just going to throw this in here on that same topic. I had mentioned to you guys a while ago that on June 19th, Erica purged her Instagram of a lot of pictures, 126 posts she deleted. And I had wondered what drove that. Why would you delete 126 posts off of your Instagram page? And when I did my master timeline, I realized that this was the time when things were really heating up with Israel and Iran. I had mentioned that to you in the past, and I had wondered to myself, if she had moved to do that after Charlie beat Bibi Netanyahu in a debate and all of his Zionist thugs at the White House, and he had convinced Trump that he should have just a limited military, limited military operation in Iran, which ended up being Operation Midnight Hammer. Well, I can now confirm that the date that Charlie went into the White House and went up like toe-to-toe with Bibi Netanyahu and his thugs who wanted more action in Iran, and he won, was on June 18th. So to make that very clear, on June 18th, Charlie goes head-to-head with the Zionists and Bibi Netanyahu, who are trying to convince Trump that there needs to be more action in Iran, that America should get behind. Obviously, Charlie's in there saying like the base is going to hate this. Don't do that. That's a very bad idea. And Charlie wins. Tucker spoke about that. You can go find the clips of Tucker speaking about the fact that Charlie spoke up for America, really spoke up for Americans and said, don't do this. You know, you promised no wars. Keep this as a limited operation. That's June 18th. The very next day on June 19th, Erica purges her Instagram. She deletes 126 posts. I had wondered if that was the way it went, that Charlie pissed off Bibi and then Erica purged her Instagram. I don't know what to make of that, but I wanted to give you guys that data point, which is from our master timeline.
Charlie Kirk went to the White House to advise President Trump on how to execute a military strike on Iran that would be more digestible to the American public, defying the strategy and desire of Bibi Netanyahu at the time. Isn't it interesting, the calls for war with Iran now? And Charlie's gone. Charlie Kirk was not just some popular conservative influencer. He was a strategic political advisor to the president, because there was not anyone in the United States more aware of what the young people in this country wanted more than Charlie Kirk. I played this clip for you all a couple weeks ago, and you need to see it again. Charlie explains here to Patrick Bet-David how he and Turning Point USA effectively flipped the U.S. presidential election in Donald Trump's favor in 2024. Pay attention to the strategic genius that Charlie had. It's important that we nerd out over this political strategy real quick, because it highlights the dangerous threat that Charlie really was to this pro-Israel lobby.
Campaign strategy, of which we helped execute on the ground in some of these states, was that, guys, don't spend your time knocking on doors about a suburban soccer mom who's weighing her options. Instead, because that takes 9 contacts to try to get her. 9 points of contact on average. Conversations, discussions, and they could be 30 minutes on it. Instead, Turning Point, go spend your time in very Republican areas where there are non-registered or what we call disengaged voters. People that like Trump, like his worldview. For example, the bro vote, right? And so this is where we spent our time, and we harvested, not ballot harvested, but we harvested in a very, very powerful way. At Arizona State University, for example, we registered thousands of young men to vote in fraternities. And that was way easier than us going to try to win over swing voters. And we did a little bit of that, but generally the Trump campaign was brilliant because they threw the Republican consultant playbook out. The Republican consultant playbook was spend all your time on the middle, on those like middle 15% swing voters, and go all in. Trump campaign said, why don't we just make our base bigger? Why don't we just make the people who love us the most? And so what they looked at was demographics. And they realized if we can make the electorate 3% more masculine, and by the way, they were so smart to do this. The Republican consultant playbook that Karl Rove basically authored was everything is about high propensity. So there's 2 types of voters, high propensity and low propensity voters. A high propensity voter is typically college educated, lives in the suburbs. You know, they watch Chris, they watch CNN. They have an income over $100,000 a year. They have 2 kids and a picket fence, and they go to soccer games, and they don't commit crimes. You know, that type of demo, right? High propensity voters is where the Republican Party has always been focused. Okay, but Trump came in, he said, no. We're going to focus on low propensity voters. The welder, the electrician, the carpenter, the police officer, or the person that's just not registered to vote. Where I thought that Donald Trump was going to win, and I wasn't as confident as anybody else, okay, was when I started to see the voter registration surge across the country. In the summer before, this last summer, new people that were registering to vote were registering at a clip 3-1 versus Democrat. In Pennsylvania, for the first time ever, in Pennsylvania, for the first time ever, we had every county in Pennsylvania, we were out registering Democrats for the first time ever. Now, mind you, What Josh Shapiro did as governor of Pennsylvania is he put in a thing called motor voter, which means you automatically get registered to vote. They thought that was going to help Democrats.
When you get your license.
When you get your driver's license. It helped Republicans because of lower, think about who's not registered to vote. It's typically lower propensity voters. And PBD, here's the kicker. Where do these people get their information? Lower propensity voters get information on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
They're not watching CNN. They're not sitting, you know why? These folks are darn tired by the time they get home. They're not turning on cable news. They're watching NFL football games. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that are not going to be able to quote to you, Marbury. They're not,
strategy.
by the way.
It's also this.
Yeah, it's also the phone. So what Donald Trump campaign did is they hacked the 2024 election, not in a way that people would think, where they said, wait a second, everyone has a supercomputer in the right-hand pocket. Why are we worried about what CNN is saying or MSNBC is saying? Why don't we win the information war? And then finally, the kicker, they said, why don't we go on the most ambitious, over-the-top, low-propensity voter communication strategy on Theo Von, Joe Rogan, Nelk Boys, Logan Paul, influencer strategies, right? And so what they said is there's this whole reservoir.
Freaking brilliant.
And the final kicker, my mandate at Turning Point was very simple. Charlie, turn Trump supporters into voters. And that's what we did.
So what I've begun to realize is that Charlie Kirk grew into the largest problem that Israel had in the United States. Bibi Netanyahu has been outspoken about the existential need to win the information war in America. He called social media a weapon of modern warfare. Israel is recruiting 10,000 Zionist pastors from America to fight misinformation about Israel amongst young people. Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA effectively flipped a U.S. presidential election. They ran the strategy and the ground game. Charlie had his finger on the pulse of young American people. He knew what they wanted. He was the most powerful conservative influencer in America, and he executed the successful campaign strategy, like I said, that flipped that U.S. presidential election, and he had the ear of the president of the United States, who did what Charlie advised him to do. Imagine the problem Bibi Netanyahu and Israel has once Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA turn their support away from them, which was going to happen. Charlie turned Bibi down straight up. Imagine Bibi Netanyahu, who has been lobbying for his entire life to go to war with Iran, hearing about how Charlie Kirk was the reason President Trump decided not to. Like I said, guys, this isn't small ball. This is big power, big money, big influence type of stuff with global and historic implications. We have entered a time where things are getting messy. Buckle up, everybody. All right, let's get to some comments. Make sure you guys get your super chats in. Let's get rolling. Rose, thank you. I want the old papal states given back to us. Yeah. You go back and look on history now and you talk about the Crusades, for example, and you just start to understand and learn the justification of what they were doing. They considered the Holy Land extremely important. And that is consistent with what Orthodox Christians, when I use that term Orthodox, as you guys know, it means the original Christian belief, really all the way up until the Protestant Reformation. Basic, fundamental Christian belief. We believe that we are the new Israel, that Christians are the new Israel, that Christ Church is the new Israel. And therefore, the promises and the covenants that God made with Israel, with the Israel of the Old Testament, were fulfilled, but then continue on with us. This is what supersessionism is. And supersessionism was completely flipped on its head and softened extensively after World War II. As I explained to you guys yesterday, the Nazis used the church fathers and their teachings on supersessionism to justify what they were doing to the Jewish people. And then politicians, Zionist politicians, both Christian and Jew, after World War II specifically, blamed then the Orthodox Christian teachings for the Holocaust. I mean, this is the history. That was the major flip in the change in Christian teaching and doctrine on this issue, and it opened up the door for what we now see as Christian Zionism and this mess that we're in right now. And as you can see, I mean, they consider our religious beliefs as Christians, as conservative Christians, ultimately is what we are, as anti-Semitic. And that's a huge problem. It's a huge problem because they have tremendous influence and sway and weight within the American body politic. The pro-Israel lobby, the pro-Zionist lobby is massive and strong and influential, and they are powerful. They wage lawfare. They have set up an infrastructure so incredibly strong to ensure that a Holocaust never happens again. And I mean, say what you want, but it's impressive. But where does that leave us as conservative Christians? We've got nothing. We've got nothing extremely influential on our behalf. Our lobby is mid at best. Mar says the worst part is that Charlie was still a Zionist and they still took him out. Yeah, I believe this to be Charlie's weakness. He certainly was a Zionist for, I mean, most of his life, or at least most of his public life. And him being a Zionist opened him up to everything that we now see at Turning Point USA. He hired a bunch of Zionists. He allowed a bunch of Zionist donors in that obviously made his life a living hell in the last months of his life, as his views started to shift, as he started to maybe realize the truth about those traditional conservative Christian beliefs that we've been talking about here. And as he started to make that shift, he couldn't get out of their grasp. And I believe that to be a very serious error that he made in building his organization. Now, you know, it's tough because he was young. I think he was 18 when he started Turning Point USA, or maybe started his political career. And when you're 18 years old and when you're that young and coming up through your 20s, and I mean, shoot, he died at 31, I think. He was young. You know, I go back and I look at the decisions that I made, you know, in business, building my businesses when I was in my 20s, and my goodness, I made so many mistakes. The mistakes that he made could have been fatal, is what we're seeing. Marianne, remember to thumbs up this video, like. Thank you for that. Thanks for that reminder. Thank you for letting everybody in the chat know. That's important. YouTube likes when you guys interact with the video and the algorithm. So yes, please leave a comment, super chat with me, engage with me here so we can hang out here for, 20 or so minutes after I go through what I have prepared for you guys today to keep you updated. I appreciate it. As of right now, the super chat is the best way to support the channel, and super chats, just the way that it works is like they automatically pop up and get starred. So they're easy for me to look through. It's almost like you've got some skin in the game with your comment. All right. So don't be afraid. Rose again, if they get the me, I want the European homeland. Oh, the Middle East. If they get the Middle East, I want the European homeland. I mean, I'll take America. I mean, shoot, I just want an equal playing field so that we of faith can practice our faith free from all of this crazy government interference. This is crazy. This is crazy. I mean, America became such a great country because it was built on Christian fundamental values. And it's what, I mean, freedom of religion, freedom of speech. I mean, these are fundamentally Christian in that we have a belief system. We have a way of living that is based in love and peace and truth. So what we are about are not dehumanizing or even killing, which had been done, in the past and really all the way up until Christianity, of those who do not agree with us or do not believe what we believe in. Like, we have a way of life. We have a faith and a religion that calls for us to win over the other, to be so self-sacrificial and be so good. I mean, when it all comes down to it, that we win over everybody else in the world. The first apostles and the first Christians, they were so ecstatic and so incredibly excited about the fact that the Jewish Messiah had come. And you read Acts of the Apostles, you read the early Christians, and it's just them just constantly trying to win the Jews over and the Gentiles and talk them into what just happened. It's like our Messiah came, like he fulfilled the old law. Like it's way better than we ever expected. It's not a political kingdom. It's a spiritual kingdom that everybody has access to, which makes sense. Which makes sense. It's not exclusive to any group of this world. God made every single one of us. He made everything. He made every single one of us. God is not exclusive to one group of people. He's accessible to every person. And that's what Jesus, the Messiah, came into this world to tell everybody and to show everybody. This is incredible news. Jews and Gentiles, the whole world can be saved. The gospel just simply means the good news, and that's what they were trying to preach. And nobody likes to talk about the fact that the Christians weren't the violent ones during that time. No, it was the state and the Jewish authorities who, let's be honest, were conspiring with the state, were lobbying the state to root the Christians out. It seems to be the reality that we are always facing here as Christians. What does that mean for us? It means that we continue to get up and we continue to fight to win over in love. Now, we can be strategic politically, we can organize, and we can make our voices more known. But this day and age of, the best way to describe it is a feminized Christianity. That's not hard. It doesn't have any oomph. That doesn't have any bite to it. It's over. It's over. It's toxic empathy. It's toxic kindness. It's a distorted love. No, I think it's time for a harder, more masculine Christianity to step up and take this thing back. Always be true. I see you very often in the chat and in the comments. I know that almost a daily basis leaving a super chat. I very much appreciate you. Hard to be a Catholic and Zionist. Yeah, I would say it's impossible, as I've been talking about. Not sure what led Charlie to be interested in Catholicism, because it's definitely not Erica. I agree. Yeah, it's interesting. I think Candace, has a little bit more insight when it comes to what Charlie might have seen as far as it goes. But I would say that because it's like almost what we're seeing on a society wide level, this kind of return back to orthodox belief, like into the more fundamental truths. Because what we've seen, especially in Christianity, is we've seen kind of this evangelical, almost relativist Christianity really take root, and it's turned into the justification for, I can be an OnlyFans model that believes in Jesus. Like, I'm a Christian OnlyFans model, or, lesbian pastors, or any type of justification that you can make for sin, but still call yourself a Christian. It's like, no. We are talking about objective truth. We do not get to determine what objective truth is. What it means to be Christian means that we believe that Jesus Christ is the Messiah and the Son of God. Just recite the creed. That's what it means to be a Christian. We believe, I don't know if I want to get into the weeds of this. I'll try to do it very quickly. The first chapter of the Gospel of John calls Jesus the Logos, the Word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And all things came to be through him. The word that John is using there, what that means, that word is logos, which is the Greeks believed that the logos, and John was writing in the Greek, but the Greeks believed that the logos was kind of the principal creative mechanism that kind of runs through all of the universe. And when you think about Jesus, and when you think about the Word becoming flesh, the Word of God, like in Genesis, we hear God say, God said, let there be light. Logos is kind of rationality, rational speech, order, right? You can say a sentence, but if it has no logos, if it has no order, then it doesn't make sense. It doesn't have any meaning. So the words in a sentence have to be ordered according to the logos in order for them to have meaning. This is the same thing that we see in the universe at large. And we see it through creation. There's an intelligence, there's a logic that we can observe in creation. This is what we mean. This is Christ. That's the Logos. That is God. That's the Word made flesh. Go back and read the Gospel of John with the context and with the perspective of Christ as the Logos of creation. Everything he says then makes a lot more sense. But what that means is, like, when we talk about objective truth, like, all of this came about in one way. When I'm talking about the truth, I'm talking about reality and how it played out. How did reality actually play out? That's the truth. When I'm not telling the truth, I'm lying, which is not interpreting or talking about reality in the way that it actually played out. These are just basic definitions of the words. When we are aligned with reality and with truth, which we as Christians say is Christ, we are subject to that objective truth. We do not get to then interpret or distort that truth for our own means. It's not subject to us. We are subject to it, to the truth. Okay? And I think what a lot of people have realized is that in this secular, atheistic, progressive, evangelical invaded type of world where things just seem chaotic and everybody can just kind of believe what they want, there's this return back to objective truth. And I think people see that in the traditional Christian faiths. So I think Charlie recognized that, and like many other young men, are making that return back. So that's my take. Eric, I see you there, bud. Thank you. Glad to see you. Glad to see you in there today, Zach. Let's keep up. Oh my gosh. Let us keep America without interference. No more lobbyists, full stop. Christ is king, go Max. Thanks, Zach. Glad to see you in there today. Maybe you're talking about on X. I was really kind of just, I was going Max. I was going Max on X. I saw all this stuff start to blow up and I was just like, nah, I'm getting after it today. And that's what I did. So yeah, we're going Max here. It's necessary. It's needed. Like I said at the outset, this is a historical moment. I think this is a huge and massive religious issue of our time. I've talked about throughout Christian history, all Christians have been asked to step up against certain false beliefs or heresies that exist in their time. Guys, this is it. This is it. This is us right now. Okay? Let's get after it. Ice and Press, thank you. I attend an EC church. Thankfully, we do not espouse Zionism. Along with several male leaders, I'm trying to educate our congregation about the dangers of Zionism. I call it Satanism in Christian faith. Yeah, it's false Christian belief, which, again, if you're Satan, if you're the devil, you are trying to get in there and distort what the truth is. So that's where constant discernment is always needed on our end. And, I attend an evangelical Christian church. I appreciate you saying that. I really do. I say evangelical Christianity, and I guess that what I just mean by that is just because there's so many different branches of it that I think that's kind of how I'm identifying it as best I can when it comes to the problem. Don't get me wrong. There are evangelical churches out there that I am sure are more orthodox, I guess you could say, in their teachings than others are. And I think that's important to say. Like, again, this movement that we're really trying to build right here, all of us right here, is like, this is not a denominationally specific movement. This is an orthodox conservative Christian movement. And there is a ton of commonality amongst what we believe that we can unite around to ensure that our rights are taken care of in America specifically, but also around the world. Let's just build this thing freaking up so we can represent Christians worldwide. All right, guys. Thank you for everybody who commented. Thank you for all who are involved in the chat. I appreciate all of you. I got to get going. Got to get to the gym today. I worked late, went too long yesterday, and wasn't able to get to the gym yesterday. And that's just not good for my mental health and for my physical health and for my ability to execute just in the world. I'm a better leader. I'm a better talker. Less ums, likes, and knows when my mind is clear. And I'm in nutritional ketosis. That's something that I take very seriously when it comes to my diet. I'm that type of guy that only has bulletproof coffee in the morning and then I only eat once a day so that I can get into nutritional ketosis every week. And I measure it because I measure my blood because I'm like that. Anyway, if you guys want me to get into a little bit of that, I mean, again, that helps me. It's something that powers me throughout the week. And, with all the research and all the stuff that's being put out there by a lot of these like really good health guys talking about ketogenic diet and low carb diets and all that good stuff, I highly recommend it. If you guys are ever curious about any of that stuff, let me know. Appreciate you. Make sure you check out ZachCostello.com. Check out the merch store. See if there's anything that you like. One Nation Under God, God First, Set Apart. Got some swag and stuff in there that I think is pretty cool. So make sure if you want to be a channel member that you sign up, and make sure to like and comment on this video. I appreciate all of you, and I will see you guys tomorrow.